It's only after the counting has been completed that the transformation can begin. This Barry Phillips, a 10-minute tour, day 2 of Bamidbar, and we're going to continue at least for another day in our wilderness setting. And let's go back to chapter 1 of Numbers, or Bamidbar. And read again, verse 2 and 3 says, "Take a census of all the congregation of the children of Israel by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male head by head, from 20 years old and above, everyone going out to the army in Israel. Number them by their divisions, you and Aaron." We go down to verse 17. "Moshe and Aaron took these men who were called by name, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second new moon, and they declared their ancestry by clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and above, each one head by head." And then if we go all the way over to verse 45 and 46. "And all those that were registered of the children of Israel by their fathers' houses from 20 years old and above, everyone going out to the army of Israel, all those registered were 603,550. Even in modern standards, that's not a small army. That's decent. That's a reasonable fighting force. It's not as numerous as the largest of nations that have millions of enlisted men and women serving. But especially in that day, that was a significant army. Now, they were not exceptionally well trained, perhaps, and not exceptionally well armed. But then again, Yah had already promised that when they went into battle, that he was the one that would go out before them and terrify and put their enemies to flight. The transformation that was necessary was taking these men from a slave mindset to a completely new identity. Now, that's already started at Mount Sinai, where Yah says that you are a peculiar people, you are a set-apart nation, you are a royal priesthood. I've called you unto myself. You are my people. You are Israel. And they were beginning to catch the drift a bit, not perfectly, but they needed to go from generational mindsets. That's important. Generational mindsets of being slaves to now being a fighting army. These were not slaves in rebellion against slave masters, such as the story of Spartacus, the gladiator who led a revolt. This is the story of a people that have been made free, who do not yet understand what freedom is, have not been free long enough to appreciate the idea that they are no longer slaves. They need to be transformed. Now, notice that the counting process was that they would be identified by their clans and by their tribes and by their fathers' houses and by their names. In other words, they would have to recount and rehearse their family lineage, ancestry, and history. Perhaps this was to remind them of who they were all the way back to the patriarchs. For us, you and I, we don't have that. I don't know how I'll go back to Abraham. I don't know if I do go back to Abraham. I may sidestep him somewhere. I can recount family history back since we came here to the United States. After that, it's a little foggy. And there are some people who've done the ancestry research and can tell me, you know, I've read it all the way back to the 400s or 500s, I think, something like that. But I don't recognize any of it. But I can tell you about the previous generations, going back 3 or 4 generations, And I can understand why certain family traits have been handed down, good and bad. But when I am called, when I am selected by Yah to do whatever it is that He's called and selected me to do, my generational makeup, it has a part to play, but it's not all that there is. Yah says, I'm calling you, I'm setting you apart. When He walked the shore of the Kinneret in Galilee, and He looked at two sets of brothers, Yochanan and Yaakov, James and John, and at Peter and Andrew, Shimon, Kepha, and Andrew, and He called them to leave their father's fishing business and come and follow Him. He put it in a context that they could understand. I will make you fishers of men. But their role to play in life was not going back out on that boat and fishing. Now, there were incidents where that took place, but they spent much more time after that point on dry land. And they were fishing for men, for people. Yah was transforming them, but He counted them first. The scripture says that He called the 12 to Him. And He assigned to them their roles and their duties. This is where you're to go. This is what you're to preach. This is how you're to minister. And they came back rejoicing that they were successful. It's in the wilderness that we start learning who we are. You don't know who you really are at your core. You don't know what you're capable of. And I say you, I'm talking about us together. We don't know and don't understand who we are until the trials and the tests come. Anybody can be the best version of themselves when the best version of life is available. It's when hardship arises, testings come, when finances are low or health is bad or relationships are strained. It's in those and other situations that we began to realize who we are. And we'll excuse our behavior. Well, they just pushed me to, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I flew off the handle. Well, it's in there. Well, I shouldn't have said what I said, and then we offer our excuse. Well, we said what we said because it was in there. And so in the days, again, of counting the Omer and the days of being in the wilderness and the times where Yah says, I'm going to put you in an environment that's pressurized and where you must learn to discern my voice or you could die out here. If you stay out here, you're not going to survive. You have to go through the testing process to get to the other side of this process because that's where the goal is. The wilderness takes us from living day to day with whatever comes at us and just handling the next crisis and hoping that we survive, to learning to live together, to camp together in a reasonable fashion. And I'm not necessarily saying go out and start living in tents, but to camp together, how do we relate together? How do we congregate together? How do we do community? How do we show that we care for one another? Are we only so centrally focused on ourselves and our needs that we're oblivious or not having enough strength, time, or energy to care for somebody outside our immediate realm? Yah is trying to broaden us. He's counting us. He is aligning us. Each tribe knew exactly how many fighting men they had. But it wasn't the tribes individually who went out on the battlefield. All of Israel went out together. And they knew who their captains and their leaders were and what their banners looked like. And they knew how to function together. They had to learn. We have to learn too. And there's no other classroom available but the wilderness. Enjoy today. Learn something. And I hope to see you again tomorrow. To then, shalom.